Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's event. We are going to be starting within the next 5 minutes. If you could please just give us a few minutes and for everybody to join, we will start at 2 o'clock sharp. If I can just get an indication from the team if you can still see my holding screen.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Natasha.
Good afternoon, everybody. By my time, it is 2 o'clock. I would like to welcome you to the SACPCMP webinar, where we will be discussing the Limited Special Dispensation and the new rules for registration. Before we start, I'd just like to run through some housekeeping rules. I can just get an indication from the team if you can see my screen with the housekeeping.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Welcome everyone to the session. The session is going to be recorded. We will more than likely publicize this on our online channels. So if you do feel that you missed something during the session, please don't worry. Please also ensure that your mics and your cameras are off at all times. We have disabled these at the moment. We will enable mics a little bit later on for the Q&A session. Please note, however, when we do enable mics, please still keep your cameras off and try those who disrupt our Q&A session by not muting your mics, we'll have to unfortunately remove you from the session. There will be a chat facility available for questions, but please, if we can just ask that those questions stick to the topic of today's webinar. So if there are general questions regarding registration, CPD items, or the council, if we can address these, we will, but otherwise you will be referred to a contact for these. So let's try to keep our questions on today's topic, and let's keep the session focused and polite and friendly. To run through today's program, I'm going to hand over shortly to our registrar, Mr. Butcher Matutle. He will be doing the welcome for the session, following which our COO, Cindy Swakwenaite, will be introducing details on the limited special dispensation, following which the registration manager, Mr. Kobus van Wyngaard, will discuss the new rules of registration and how these apply to the limited special dispensation, which we sometimes use the acronym LSD. Following this, we will have a Q&A session. So I hope you all enjoy the session. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to be handing over to our SACPCMP registrar, Mr. Butcher Matutle. Over to you, sir. Sorry, sir, your mic is muted.
Thank you very much, Madam van der Berg.
And we can now hear you. Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. A very good afternoon to you, members of council present here today, academics, volunteer associations, professionals, would-be professionals, stakeholders, and colleagues in the built environment. I'm delighted to welcome you to this important webinar hosted by the South African Council for the Project and Construction Management Professions, the SACPCMP. Today marks a pivotal moment in our journey towards inclusive professionalization and transformation in the construction and project management sector. We are here to unpack the newly gazetted Limited Special Dispensation, effective from 1 August 2025 to 30th of July 2027. Let me give you the historical context. To understand the importance of this dispensation, we must reflect on our history. When the SACPCMP was established in 2002, a grandfather clause was introduced to allow recognition of qualifications for registrations in the absence of formal competency standards. This was repeated when the construction health and safety categories were introduced. This approach was not unique to the SACPCMP, as other councils, our sister councils, the Engineering Council of South Africa, the South African Council for Architectural Professions, Quantity Surveyors, Property Valuers, etc., started the same way of using grandpa clauses. This was, at that point, the only way you could professionalize already existing pools of practitioners by recognizing base and minimum qualifications and experience to register and regulate. While these concessions at the SACPCMP were intended to be temporary, they persisted for nearly 2 decades. As a result, many qualifications used for registration were not aligned with the South African Qualifications Authority criteria, which is SAQA. Some were not registered with SAQA. Others were not accredited by a recognized quality council. And in many cases, short courses or unit standards were accepted instead of full qualifications. This created a fragmented and inconsistent system that compromised the council's ability to guarantee public protection through professional regulation. It became clear that the SACPCMP needed a mechanism to transition from legacy practices to a future-ready, standards-based system without excluding those already in the profession. Why the special dispensation? The construction industry has long been a gateway for unskilled and semi-skilled labor to grow into professional roles. However, many of these pathways have not aligned with national educational requirements. This has created barriers for capable individuals who lack formal qualifications but possess valuable experience. The SACPCMP, after more than 3 years of consultation and collaboration, has developed this dispensation to bridge that gap without compromising the integrity of our professions or the safety of the public. What does the dispensation offer? The Limited Special Dispensation introduces 3 key exemptions. These being qualifications exemption, the second being competency exemption, and the third being suspension of qualification gap requirements. Now, what does qualification exemption mean? This is related to relaxing of qualification requirements. So here, these are relaxed, the requirements for qualifications, of certain qualifications. Now, the second one, competency exemption. Here is adjustment of the pass mark for competency assessments. Now, with regard to suspension of qualification gap requirements, applicants with non-SACPCMP accredited qualifications are accepted with the requirements to be met in the first CPD cycle. Let me be clear, this is not a blanket exemption. Registrants will be provisionally registered and must meet specific conditions outlined in their outcome letters. Non-compliance within the stipulated timeframes, for example, 2 years for applicants and 3 years for CPD cycles, will result in deregistration. Supporting professional development. To ensure that competence and safety are not compromised, the SACPCMP has developed robust support mechanisms. Special CPD programs tailored to address identified gaps, mentorship programs for those flagged during audits, initial professional development modules, IPDM, covering core knowledge areas in construction management, project management, and health and safety. The last point being partnerships with institutions like PMI, Project Management Institute, to deliver quality learning. Now, how do we implement and engage? The SACPCMP is committed to transparency and stakeholder engagement. We will be rolling out workshops and open days, roadshows and virtual sessions, updates via the Shapeshifter magazine and our website. We encourage you to visit www.sacpcmp.org.za for detailed information and to engage with our CRM team for support. CRM standing for Customer Relationship Management. In closing, this dispensation is more than a policy. It is a commitment to transformation, inclusivity, and excellence. Let us embrace this opportunity to uplift our industry and ensure that no capable professional is left behind. Thank you for your time, your dedication, and your continued contribution to the built environment. I now hand over to Ms. Konaite, our Chief Operations Officer, who will take us through a detailed presentation about the Limited Special Dispensation. I thank you.
Thank you, Registrar. Sorry, just in the absence of Ms. Konaite speaking, I do see we are getting some messages for people to join us through the, they're in the waiting room, so we were going to let them in. But until then, just over to you, Madam Konaite. Thank you, Registrar.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen shortly. I just want to greet everyone on the chat and welcome you all, and thank you very much for attending this session so that we can unpack this new regulation for you. I would love an indication if you can see my screen, and hopefully what you see is a presentation.
Yes, ma'am, it is showing.
Thank you very much. So what I will be taking us through this afternoon is some information to understand the Limited Special Dispensation. So from here on out, I'm going to call it the LSD. So I know what we usually understand this acronym to mean. So I'm hoping that by using this acronym, everyone will remember what we are talking about. So firstly, I want to talk about the foundation for the creation of the LSD. It's around professional registration. So if you remember, we've often talked about as the council. So those of you that know the council and have attended a lot of our sessions, you'll remember us speaking about the 13 mandates. So the 13 mandates are what we derive from our Act that empowers us to regulate the various professions under our Act. And the most important one, and the one that is on the top of most people's mind, is professional registration. So there are several sections in the Act that speak to our empowerment for professional registration. So it's Section 11, Section 18, and Section 19. And as we have professionalized the industry, we've also now started to look into this empowerment in the Act to start enforcing some of the sections of the Act. So we register applicants in appropriate categories of registration, and we regulate them through a registration policy so that only competent persons with relevant underlying qualifications are registered. If you look at the sections that we are now focusing on in our Act, this is what has become the foundation for the Limited Special Dispensation. Because we are now coming through to enforce these areas of the Act, we also now need to start providing transitional arrangements to ensure that individuals can gain their professional registration. So the first aspect is to note Section 18.2 of the Act that says, a person may not practice in any of the categories contemplated in subsection 1, so 18.1 of the Act, unless he or she is registered in that category. And you'll note there the different categories are listed under that section 18.1. We also note under the section on identification of work, section 26.3 also speaks to the requirements for registration, indicating that a person who is not registered in terms of this Act may not perform any kind of work identified for any category of registered person, pretend to be, or in any manner hold or allow himself or herself to be held out as a person registered in terms of this Act, use the name of any registered person or any name or title referred to in Section 18 or 21, or perform any act indicating or calculated to lead persons to believe that he or she is registered in terms of this Act. And then lastly, under the sections on offences and penalties, section 41(3) indicates a person convicted of an offence in terms of 18(2). So we talked about not being allowed to do the work if you're not registered, may be liable to a fine equal to double the remuneration received by him or her for the work done in contravention of section 18(2), or to a fine equal to the fine calculated according to the ratio determined for 3-year imprisonment in terms of Adjustments of Fines Act 1991. So if we break down what we mean by this, there are two aspects. It's the professional registration, and then it's also the identification of work. So under these two aspects is where the limited special dispensation now squarely falls. So the first one, in terms of identification of work, it's where we scope the range of work performed by a registered person in terms of a specific piece of legislation, other than the legislation that created the councils, or the statutory duties which may be performed by a registered person. And this is empowered by section 26 of the Act. Now, the purpose of the IDO is for us to, once we've scoped the work, we then can determine the work that can be performed by only competent persons who are registered, who are accountable for their actions, who ensure protecting the health and safety of the public and the environment, and also this provides recourse in relation to the aspects of professional conduct. So when we see in that section where it talks about it's an offence under the Act to perform the work, this is the work. So it is under Gazette number 42712, which is the Gazette notice for the scope of work, which was gazetted in 2019, which outlines the work, the scope of work for the categories under registration of the SACPCMP. And you'll also note there that this work is scoped according to the project stages. And you'll note also that there's various scope of work under different stages of a project for this different categories of registration. So that's the first step and most important part to then regulate a profession. Once you've done that, you then develop competency standards. And competency standards are the standards that are developed to ensure that you are addressing the needs with regards to the scope of work and determining whether or not a person is competent for the purpose of registration. And by doing that, you are declaring that that person should be able to undertake that work. So that's section 13 of the Act. And in terms of the council, we've developed a competency framework, and that is what is utilized for our assessment. And that competency framework looks at three things: knowledge and skills, but we also want to make sure that professionals are equipped to be flexible, adaptable, and agile, that they are responsive to volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity in the world that we live in now, so that they remain relevant and address sustainability, and that they are equipped to drive key aspects of profitability and service delivery in the South African construction industry. And that is our competency pyramid, looking at all the various aspects that we are looking in assessing when we do professional registration. And then lastly, in terms of the 13 mandates. So you'll notice I haven't covered all the mandates, but I'm talking to the mandates that are going to be related to the LSD. We have accreditation. So under section 13 of the Act, we are required by the Act to accredit educational institutions and their educational programs that lead to our professions. So in terms of that, we then look at the recognition of educational qualifications. And that section is in the registration policy and in the rules for registration. So these are the educational requirements to register. And these requirements are also stipulated by the SACPCMP regulations as well. So what is required is any qualification that we recognize or accept for registration must be a full qualification. It must be registered on the NQF, and it must be obtained from an accredited educational institution. So in other words, it must be accredited by CHE or a QCTO. And if it's a foreign qualification, it must be evaluated by SACPCMP. And the recognition is undertaken through our recognition of educational qualifications policy. So this then leads us to the routes to registration. So we have the educational route to registration, and this is where our accredited qualifications come in. So the educational route speaks to SACPCMP accredited qualifications and relevant experience that is required for registration. If you meet that criteria, then this will be your route to registration. The other route is SACPCMP accredited qualification with no relevant experience. Then you go through the candidature route under the educational route to registration. Then we have the non-SACPCMP accredited qualification and relevant experience. And this is where we see the recognition list of educational qualifications that we then accept. But then there is a requirement to bridge the gaps in those qualifications by an educational evaluation where we compare that qualification with the SACPCMP accredited qualification, and then you'll be required to do modules to address the gaps in that qualification. And then the non-accredited SACPCMP accredited with no relevant experience, then it's the structured candidacy program with your IPDM, which is your modules that you have to do to address the gaps. So with that being said, in terms of laying the foundation to why the new dispensation. So you would have noted in what I've covered is that the standards are becoming more stringent to register with the council. And because of that, we now need to provide a transition period for those that would like access to professional registration. So firstly, we rectified the grandfather clauses by professionalizing, making sure that for every registration category, there's a SACPCMP accredited qualification. We're phasing out the peer review process. So firstly, we've started with more scientific methodology that we use for professional interviews, and then we will phase it out soon enough to less of a peer review method. And then we also made sure that there is this mechanism, which is the special dispensation for the transition. We also reviewed our entry requirements, the knowledge requirements, the assessment tools, the CPD requirements, and then we developed the various new policies that then sets the stage for the new rules. So Cobus will cover all the elements in the new rules, but while we have new rules and we had old rules, what happens is there are a lot of people that are left sort of in between, in limbo. And it's those people that we're trying to address. And there are also a lot of people that might be left outside because they cannot comply with the new rules, because the new rules obviously are now more stringent. So we also want to address those people. So we've developed several policies. So we've got about 13 new policies, but the main ones with regards to the LSD that we're looking at are the registration, CPD, RPL, and appeals and tribunal policy. But for today's webinar, where we're looking specifically at the LSD, I'll just cover some of the areas that have changed with regards to the registration policy and what to expect in the rules and the RPL policy. So if we look at the changes, the major changes, I'm not going to go into detail. I just want you to focus on the major changes. So when we had in the past your staggered criteria, so if you all remember, we started with national diploma, and then if you had a national diploma, you had so many years of experience required from you. Then if we went higher to a diploma, then it was so many years. Then a BSc, it was so many years. A BTech, it was so many years. A honors, it was so many years, and masters and so forth. Now we have one NQF level requirement for each registration category and 1 years of experience requirement for each registration category. Then there was no specific candidacy period before. Now we have a structure in terms of the candidacy and a specific cutoff period for candidacy. And then when in the past we accepted all built environment qualifications, we're now accepting SACPCMP accreditation. And then we have a recognition list with evaluations and initial professional development module requirements. Then with RPL, we had RPL for one of our registration categories. Now we have RPL for all. Before RPL was against competencies. So essentially what was happening was 2 competency assessments. Now we have an RPL assessment and then your competency assessment for professional registration. So what it is an exit level outcome assessment, which looks at the knowledge requirements so that it's the same standard that comes in, whether it's educational or RPL, it will be the same assessment. And then within the professional registration process, there is then the same competency assessment. Then with RPL, based on only a portfolio of evidence, we now also have various options where we can utilize different evidence for learning, including educational qualifications for those who do have those that are not either recognized or accredited with council that can then be used in RPL as a way of recognizing them. And then there's also an option for remediation of gaps. So in other words, there's an option that if you are within a specific threshold that you can still address the gaps instead of having no opportunity or completely failing the RPL process. So I want you to remember, notwithstanding the LSD, there are still 2 routes to registration, the educational route and the RPL route. And these routes still apply and are still an option for anyone who wants to utilize the option. So obviously, for the educational route, you still have to meet specific criteria. And if you can't meet that criteria on the educational side, RPL is still an option. So as the registrar said, it is not a blanket exemption. So let us break down what the LSD is in terms of those exemptions that he was talking about. So the first one, which is your qualification exemptions. So the qualification exemption is essentially one aspect, the exemption from specific NQF requirements for registration. So you would have noted in the LSD, so I'm hoping that most of you have downloaded the LSD Gazette. So you would have noted there that it describes for each registration category what is the exemption. So in most instances, it will say we've lowered the NQF level requirement. So for example, the NQF level requirement will be NQF level 7, which is a BSc or a bachelor's degree instead of an NQF level 8, which is an honors degree. What will you need to do if you are eligible under this exemption? You will need to upgrade the NQF level that you were registered with under LSD within a 3-year period. Why 3 years? Because that's the CPD cycle. So you'd either have to raise your NQF level, and for those that are under the exemption, where we've exempted 2 specific courses for registration, you will have to obtain a full qualification within 3 years. You will have to also complete annual targets that's related to completing that. Then under the competency exemption, what is the competency exemption? This means that we've exempted the pass mark requirements. We've adjusted it, in other words. So what will be done? You will be allowed to progress if you get between 50 and 59%. So as you know, according to the rules for registration, 60% is required, but under the LSD, you'll be allowed to progress if you have between 50 and 59%. However, what you'll need to do is participate in the CPD program within the 3 years, so within your CPD cycle, and then you will have to be reassessed at the end of the 3 years to retain your registration. So in other words, at the end of the 3 years, you'll undertake an assessment and you have to then get the requisite mark. So it would be, for example, the 60% to be able to retain your registration. And then the suspension of the qualification gap requirements. So under the LSD, under the new rules for registration right now, if you were to come with an SACPCMP recognized qualification, you would have to do specific modules before you can register. But now we have suspended that requirement by allowing those with recognized qualifications to register without first addressing the gaps. And what they'll need to do is they'll be required to then undertake the modules during their first CPD cycle only. Now, as the registrar also said, this is not compulsory. The LSD is not compulsory. There are other options. So those options still remain. So let me give you an example. So the qualification exemption, we talked about in the previous slide. What is the exemption and what would you be required to do? So if you feel you do not want to have that burden within your 3-year cycle, then you still have the option for RPL. But obviously, you'd have to be eligible. Okay, so there are different years of experience requirement to be able to be eligible for RPL. So if you're eligible, you could follow the RPL route. This means you get an RPL certificate and will not be required to meet the qualification requirements in the future. So you use your RPL certificate for professional registration, and there will never be a requirement to then do a specific qualification or different courses. Obviously, if you then get 60% for RPL, if you don't, you might still have to do courses to upgrade that RPL result. Then under the competency exemption, you do not have to do the LST under the competency exemption if you feel that you would like to attempt again to do your assessment. So that option is for people who've gotten at least 30% or more for that assessment, and if you've attempted less than 3 times. So if you are in that position, you can take 6 months or whatever you need to refocus, study hard, and try and pass the assessment again. You don't have to be forced to take the LSD route. And then those under the suspension of qualification gap requirements, your option then would be to do the modules before you register and then just show proof that you've undertaken the necessary modules before you register, meaning once you register, you'll be fully registered and wouldn't be required to undertake anything for your qualification. So who do they apply to, these exemptions? So the qualification exemption applies to all new applicants who meet other criteria. So as you heard from the registrar, it's not a blanket exemption. So you still have to meet other criteria. For example, the years of experience requirements that are there. You still have to meet that requirement, even though you might be eligible for the exemption under qualification. And also those that are eligible are candidates as well. Under the competency exemption, who's eligible here? So the eligibility is on the basis of exams and interview assessments. So not logbook or report assessments. And then lastly, in terms of the suspension of qualification gaps, those that are on the recognition list. So only recognized qualifications apply here. So for example, engineering, architectural, quantity surveying, etc. If it is not on the recognition list, it is not accepted for registration. Then if that's the case, if it's not accepted for registration, the LSD cannot apply. So then in that instance, RPL would be your best option. So what do you need to know in terms of these exemptions? These exemptions will not be applied retrospectively as required by the law. So the law does not allow a new regulation or legislation to be applied retrospectively. The LSD is not compulsory. You must consent for it to be applied to you. So you saw how I outlined that there are different options. So if you feel you might not be able to cope with the requirements of the LSD, you can utilize the other options as I indicated. It is limited, so it only applies to the exemptions. So in other words, there are still other criteria that must be complied to. The exemptions that we've noted are only those 3. And it's only valid for 2 years. The exemptions are only valid for 2 years. So from the 1st of August this year until 2027. And then you must comply with the requirements or risk losing your registration. So you'll notice in the gazetted LSD rules, you'll notice what are the requirements to maintain your registration throughout the LSD period. And then short courses are not accepted for registration. So from the 1st of August, short courses are not accepted for registration, only full qualifications. So if you find yourself in that situation that you only have short courses, then RPL might be the best route for you. The only ones that have been exempted under the LSD are SAMTRAC and NEBOSH, and there are still those requirements as I indicated if you are exempted under qualifications under the LSD. And then I just want to reiterate the RPL route. It is for some people that don't prefer this as an option because they see that it might take a lot of effort and time. But it's worthwhile in that once you have gone through the RPL process, you've settled the requirement, the qualification requirement, and you'll never have to address it once you register, because then it would be covered for for the rest of your registration. And here we look at assessing individuals for non-formal, informal knowledge and proficiency to determine the extent to which that individual has achieved required learning outcomes. So in RPL, there's a policy, and what we look at is various things. So in the past, it was just experience, and that's also still relevant. But now we also offer an opportunity for those that want to utilize, for example, those who have short courses and don't have a full qualification and want recognition. They can do that through the RPL process, where we then analyze and evaluate each of those, and we put them through a comparison with an SACPCMP accredited qualification. And once we've done that and you get a 60% and above, you then get an RPL certificate and you can proceed without ever requiring to do a formal full qualification. So please still look at RPL as an option. You don't need formal qualification, but if you do and it's not accepted or recognized by the SACPCMP, this might be the best option to still get it recognized through a formal process. So for all of the information that I've shared with you today, so if you want to take note, the new rules for registration, the rules for exemption, which is your Limited Dispensation Gazette, the rules for RPL, and any other policy, the registration policy as well, are available on the website if you need access to those policies. Please visit our website so that you can get a copy of all of those policies. And that's where I'll end my presentation. I'll hand over to Cobus to do the presentation with regards to the rules for RP, the rules for registration rather, and then we'll take all your questions. If you have a very pressing question and you can't wait until that time, you can put your question in the chat so long, and we have a team with us that if they can answer it, they'll answer it in the chat, or we will have a look at those questions then during the question answer session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Koinaite. Sorry, Cobus, before you jump in there, if I could just quickly, I see we are getting lots of questions in the chat box. Thank you very much. So just question that keeps on coming up. Yes, we will look to share this presentation. Yes, we will look to share this recording via our YouTube channel, which is, if you go into YouTube and you type SACPCMP, you'll find our channel there. So please also, if I could just recommend, listen to what the presenters are saying before you type your question, because they might be answering your question while you're actually typing and you miss them saying that. So over to you, Mr. Van Wijngaard, and thank you, Ms. Koinaite.
Thank you very much, and very good afternoon to everyone. Let me just share my screen. Can I get confirmation that the screen is shared?
Your screen is visible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natasha. And as I mentioned, a very good afternoon to the registrar, to the colleagues, and everyone here on the webinar this afternoon. So my presentation that I will be sharing with you today is with regards to our new rules for registration, as Ms. Koinaite has indicated and alluded to, and also very much how the new rules and the alignment of the special dispensation and the effectiveness of this starting on the 1st of August. So you will see I will highlight just a couple of specific points, areas that needs to be considered when doing new applications. And what is very important to note is that these documents, as Ms. Koinaite has mentioned earlier, is available on the SACPCMP website. And I would really recommend each and every one to have a look at the full document in terms of both the rules for registration, the new ones commencing on the 1st of August, or that has commenced, as well as the limited special dispensation. And what helps a lot is that if these two documents are read together alongside of each other, to ensure that you see exactly what those impacts are. But first off, it is important to note that the SACPCMP is empowered through Section 36 of the Project and Construction Management Professions Act, Act number 48 of 2000, to make rules with regards to any matter that is required or permitted to be prescribed in the Act, or any matter to better execute the Act in relation to the powers granted by the Act. And the Council does that specifically through the powers that, as Ms. Koinaite has mentioned in her presentation, through sections 11, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22 of the Act. And therefore, the rules for registration is developed from the SACPCMP registration policy. Apologies. So what's also very important is to note that these rules that are distributed by the SACPCMP is there to give effect to the actual right to administrative action that is lawful, reasonable, and procedurally fair. And that is in accordance to our PAJA Act, Section 33, and that is the Promotion of Administrative Justice Act, Act number 3 of 2000. The special dispensation, as that is gazetted, is, as Ms. Koinaite indicated, it's a temporary exemption for a total period of 2 years, starting the 1st of August up until the 30th of June 2027. And importantly, it is an optional route to take. versus whereas the rules for registration, the new rules that has been now gazetted, remains the core framework. And all the aspects within the new rules are applicable as of the 1st of August, and that needs to be complied with. But as mentioned, the special dispensation allows for that exemption in certain categories. So what does the new rules state? As yet again, the rules, I must also highlight, it's not a completely new development of the wheel. We still have our usual registration categories. Nothing has changed there. We have our professional construction project manager, our professional construction manager, our professional construction health and safety agent, professional building inspector, as well as our professional construction mentors. Those are our professional categories. Of course, candidate categories includes our candidate construction project manager, our candidate construction manager, our candidate construction health and safety agent, candidate building inspector, as well as our candidate construction health and safety manager, and our candidate construction safety officer. And then, of course, our specified categories under Section 18(1)(c) of the Project and Construction Management Professions Act, which includes our construction mentors, our certified building inspectors, as well as our construction health and safety managers and our construction health and safety officers. What still remains the same is the different stages of the construction project that each and every one of these professionals, candidates, and specified categories registered persons practice. So you would know the professional construction project manager and the professional construction health and safety agent. They perform their functions from stage 1 all the way through to stage 6 of the construction project. And that is how the competencies are evaluated against through all 6 of those stages. Whereas your construction manager, your construction health and safety manager, your construction health and safety officer, they mainly operate through stages 4, 5, and 6 of the construction process. So, and their competencies are measured against those specific stages. And that is really important when doing an application for registration within any of the specific categories, because that is how you will be assessed for your competency. It is important to note that when we look at our new rules and we take into consideration our online application and documentation stages. So first off, everyone would know that the council only accepts online applications. And one of the latest changes to our system, and this is purely to help the industry as well as to ensure that we get through the registration process quicker and faster, and also to help each and every applicant to provide us with all the required information so that there is not a back and forth in terms of outstanding documentation, which has been a big struggle item in the past. So you will see in the past we had CV templates as well as project profile templates, and we had the Annex to A1 and the Annex to A2. Those documents no longer feature. What you will find now in terms of our online application system is that the CV information, so all that personal information, work experience, etc., is provided directly onto your profile when the profile gets created. So it requires you to provide all that specific details. Your project profile, where it was separately submitted previously, that project information is indicated directly onto the system, whereby you provide us with the information. And as I indicated earlier, the project profile section will also require you to indicate in which stages of the project you were active in. So, and as I mentioned, if you are registering as a project manager, we want to see that you have worked on projects from stage 1 all the way to stage 6. We will not require you to work from stage 1 to stage 6 on every single project. We know that within construction, you sometimes get moved to a project and you join the project as the project manager, maybe in stages from stage 4, and you're only there in stage 4 and stage 5. and then you maybe get moved to another project. Other projects, the health and safety officer is there all the way from stage 4 and completes the entire project up until stage 6. But the safety officer sometimes gets moved from project to project. So that is why we give you the option to list a number of different projects that you have worked on, but the rules for registration specify specifically under each and every category, what is the number of years that we want to see when you do that submission, so that we can see that, okay, as a health and safety officer, we want to see 4 years of relevant practical experience. So, and that 4 years of relevant practical experience could have been achieved over the past 10 years. So not just the last 4 years is not what we're looking for. Just as long as you can provide to us evidence that you have obtained that full number of years of experience that is relevant and practical to the category that you are registering. The other document, the only document that now gets uploaded, is on the online system. The documents that you will upload separately will include a certified ID document together with your certified qualifications. Please also note that when qualifications from outside of South Africa is submitted, that those qualifications must be submitted together with a SACPCMP evaluation. As Ms. Corneta has indicated previously, that the NIBOSH has been part of the Limited Special Dispensation exemptions. That NIBOSH international diploma needs to be accompanied by a SACPCMP evaluation document as well. So that's important. Furthermore, another document that you will then also submit will include your will be your eligibility document. So it's called the eligibility successes and challenges, where you will provide us with a approximate 3,000 word document specifying your successes and challenges within the specific category of registration that you are applying for. And that is important to also upload that document. That is the only template that's also available for completion. So, and that template is also available on our website. So you will see that all the other old documents are no longer available. Importantly is that when we start off with our first process in terms of the verification of the documents and the information that you have provided, is that to ensure that your application processes through the system smoothly and without hiccups, please ensure that the information is provided to within the most detail and as thorough as possible. But if there is any information that is required that you might have not submitted, you will have, as per the new rules, 21 days to correct that information and to submit that back to the SACPCMP. If the submission is not done within that 21 days, your application might be cancelled. So please take note of that. The eligibility and the competency assessment. So as always, part of the eligibility, your submission still goes to the our two assessors that are independent and external to the SACPCMP, who will be assessing your eligibility documents. So going through all the information that you have provided to determine eligibility. Together with that comes the competency part. So after passing the eligibility, that if the assessors, who, as Ms. Corneta indicates, gives you a score of above 60%, you will move on to the interview or the exam stage. As we will know, the interview stage is only for professionals. So our professional construction project manager and construction manager, as well as our professional construction health and safety agent, and our professional building inspectors, they have to complete a professional interview. whereby they will still perform an online interview. We don't do physical interviews anymore, so it's an online interview. But the rules for registration specifies exactly what is the requirements of when performing that interview virtually online. So that please make sure to go through all of that to ensure compliance with those competency rules. But what we do is we share that information to you when you book the interview. When it comes to the booking of the interviews, our interviews are literally able to be booked daily. So we continuously have new dates available. There isn't specific times or periods when we do interviews and when not. We do interviews throughout the year. So that is also important to note. When it comes to the exams, please make use of our registration calendar that is available on our website as well, that details specifically when the exams takes place. As I've touched on, the interviews as well as the exams are online, and the exams are proctored through a proctoring software. So what's important to note is that you have to comply with the security rules for the completion of the exams. And that includes having a secure laptop sitting in an area that is secure. Also, you can't have people walking around you, etc. I'm not going to go through all the details. It is very well detailed within the rules for registration document. But please make sure that when starting the exam, people have to scan their IDs, they have to do a full 360-degree scan of the room, and so forth, before they can commence with the exam. And as I mentioned, these exams are proctored, so we literally can see you whilst you are writing the exam, and ensuring that all the rules are complied with as a normal exam would have been undertaken. So that forms part of our interviews and exams. And the pass rate, as per the new rules, is still 60%. So then after getting that interview exam, what is also important to note is the special dispensation, with, as Ms. Kunete has elaborated, where the 60% pass mark has been relaxed to 50%, but everyone that falls within that 50 to 60% pass mark has got that option to either accept or reject the limited special dispensation. After completing your interview and/or exam, then you move on to the confirmation of your registration, whereby the council will inform you of your outcome of your interview and exam and confirm whether you have passed or failed, or what is basically what was your outcome and what is the next steps towards moving towards your registration. It should be noted that part of the new rules for the interviews and the exams is the criteria when it comes to the amount of times that you can take these interviews and or exams. Interviews, if you have failed your interview and you want to come for a re-interview, that re-interview can be done after 6 months. That is still the norm as it's currently, but you can only be gone for a re-interview for the maximum of 3 times. So you can only do the interview 3 times. If you fail the interview 3 times, then you have to start a new application. The same with the exams. The exams, if you fail the exam with less than 35%, you automatically have to start a new application if you get less than 35%. If you get between 35 and 50%, then you have the option to come for a re-exam. And again, you've got a maximum of 3 attempts to do your exam. And if you get between the 50 and 60%, then you've got the option to use the limited special dispensation that you can accept. And of course, if you get more than 60%, you just follow the normal registration route towards your certificate. So that is important. It's also supposed to take note of the confirmation of your registration after going through all the processes, that your certificate that you are provided at the completion of this process includes a QR code that is very important to be scanned by all organizations to ensure that the information on the certificate is relevant to the person that is providing such a certificate, to ensure the validity of that certificate, as well as the information that is printed on it. So that certificate is your letter of good standing. It provides to whoever is receiving that certificate that you are on the database of registered persons with the SACPCMP, and that you are in good standing with your registration. I want to have indicate, so let's look at some of those core requirements in terms of the rules, the new rules for registration. So leaving out the section in terms of the limited special dispensation, I'll touch on that just now. But what do the new requirements say in terms of each one of the different categories? So when we look at the NQF levels and the credits, please take note of the credits as well, is that a professional construction project manager or a professional construction manager is now required to have an NQF level 8 qualification, and the council specifies the qualifications that has been accredited by the SACPCMP, as well as on Annexure A of the rules for registration, there's a list of acceptable qualifications as well. So that is now a new NQF level 8, 480 credits qualification required. Then in terms of your professional construction health and safety agent, a requirement of an NQF level 7 will be required, totaling of 360 credits within the construction health and safety qualification. So it should also be noted that when we look at these qualifications, that if the applicant provides an equivalent built environment qualification that is on the recognition list, at an NQF level 8 or 7, as I've just indicated, that will be subject to an educational evaluation. It should be noted that our project managers and our construction managers are required to have a minimum of 5 years of relevant practical experience within those specific roles in order to comply with the experience requirements. Apologies. Our construction health and safety officers now require an NQF level 5 qualification of 120 credits. Ms. Kuneta has indicated and has talked about the short courses that one would have to obtain a qualification in NQF level 5, 120 credits. So the minimum experience required, I did mention already in terms of the project and construction managers. Our health and safety agents require 7 years of relevant practical experience. That's still the same. Safety officers requires 4 years of experience. And then we have our building inspectors requires also 7 years of experience. And our construction professional construction mentors, as well as our construction mentors, requires 10 years of experience in order to be able to register for those specific categories. It should also be taken into consideration that your CPD and your annual fee compliance is still of utmost importance in order for you to maintain your registration. So after passing through all of the requirements and getting through to your certificates, that you need to maintain your CPD requirements, and you have to pay your annual fees in order to remain registered with the council. So when we align what I've just said in terms of some of those changes on the new rules for registration, together with the special dispensation, when we do our competency evaluations, for our professional interviews and examinations. Our new rules for registration states still that it's a 60% score required in order to pass. But with special dispensation, this threshold has been reduced to 50%. So that will mean that if you score between that 50 and 60%, that means that let's start first off. If you score less than 50%, unfortunately, you fail either the professional interview or the examination. That's an automatic fail. If you score between the 50 and 60%, then you do have the option to opt in for the special dispensation. And that will mean that you have to comply with the requirements as per the Gazette during your 3 years of your first CPD cycle to fill those gaps. So that is where the special dispensation comes in at the competency and assessment criteria. If you score more than 60%, you are not impacted by the limited special dispensation. You just proceed as per usual. You will obtain your certificate and you will just have to comply with your normal CPD requirements as per the start of your CPD cycle. That is a 3-year cycle and no longer that 5-year cycle. This has been well communicated in the past 2 years. So to link these rules, the rules still remain the main part of registration. So all the criteria in the new rules for registration remains in place, except only for those temporary exemptions. And again, highlighting there that it's optional, that those temporary exemptions on the specific areas. But where there is no indication that there's an exemption, please revert to the rules for registration and what the full requirements remain in there. In terms of the educational requirements, that temporary lowering of the specific categories, as Ms. Cornetia has detailed thoroughly in her presentation, together with the IPDM modules and the CPD targets that are used to close those qualification or competency gaps. So please take note of that, and that is where the limited special dispensation will play a big part. And then, of course, those people that do opt in for the limited special dispensation option, that they will be provisionally registered, okay, based on that requirements, and they have to comply with those CPD linked outcomes that they will receive. And if they do not comply with those CPD linked outcomes, those registrations will be suspended and then after completely cancelled or basically deregistered. So please take note of that. In conclusion, that the rules define the standard process. So please make sure that you go through the new rules for registration, because it literally outlines every single process right through from the assessments, the pre-assessment stages, the assessment stages, and the eligibility, what is required, and especially with the exams and the interviews, and then the conclusion thereof in terms of the certificates and the qualification requirements, etc. So it's very detailed. So please make sure that you go through that carefully when starting an application, and that the special dispensation is there to provide support to the industry for during this transitional period over the next 2 years, to help to align completely to the special dispensation, to the new rules. Candidates and professionals must please use that 3-year CPD cycle to meet their final requirements. We really want to help you and to make sure that you improve both yourself and your own career by doing so. And then ongoing compliance with the rules will just ensure professionalization, quality, and regulatory integrity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Van Venkrat. Thank you, everybody. I see we've got lots of questions that are coming through, and I see the team is also assisting in answering those. I appreciate that from the team. We're going to open up for a Q&A shortly. Some of the questions that I have noted in the, again, just to let everybody know, yes, we will look to distribute the presentations. We will also look to include this video on our YouTube channel. We have an SACPCMP YouTube channel. People have also been asking about preparation for exams. It's not the focus of this, but please also visit the YouTube channel to assist you for exam presentations, exam preparation. And also, there've been a few queries in terms of people waiting for feedback in terms of assessments. Like I said, let's try and keep your questions strictly to this presentation. I would just like to note that the SACPCMP does have very strict systems in place with regarding plagiarism, with exams, with regarding security measures. So if you have a delay in getting a response, it could be that you are under investigation for either plagiarism or perhaps an issue with your exam. So you will receive feedback on this. Please keep an eye on your emails for feedback from the SACPCMP. It's not necessarily the case, but and there are those instances. All right, so I think let's open up for questions. I'm going to take hands. If I can have our team on standby. Oh, and let me unmute the mics as well.
I've already got a question here, Natasha, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all. Please go ahead, Ms. Quinata.
Yeah, so there's a question here from Gregory Judd, who's asking if the UCT health and safety course not recognized for registration. So this will also apply to, there is a short course or short learning program from UJ as well. So as we indicated, if it's the only qualification that you have, we can't accept it on its own for professional registration. So as Purvis indicated, it has to have the credits as well. So not just the NQF level, but the credits as well. There was another question that I answered in the Q&A. So we've got a Q&A box and a chat box. So if you look at the Q&A box, I answered a question earlier about someone asking, they've got a quantity surveying qualification, but also this, the UJ short course in building inspector or the UJ short course in health and safety. Now that person is in a better position in that they already have the full qualification and then the short courses. So for them, they interestingly would not have to do the IPDM, so the different modules to address the gaps when they want to register as a CHSM or CHSA or as a building inspector. So they're in a better position because they would have already done what they would have been required to do under the LSD anyway. But if the short course is all you have, you don't have any other full qualification, then we do not recognize it for registration. In your instance, if you want to use it for registration, the best option will be RPL. So what you do with that is you submit it under RPL, and then it comes back, the education evaluation, and they'll say to you, has the course covered enough content? And whatever gaps are there, so in other words, let's say there are elements that need to be added, you then do a POE only addressing those elements, and then you pass your oral assessment, and then you get your RPL certificate. Meaning, when you then come to register with the RPL certificate, you don't need to then comply with LSD because you would have covered the qualification requirement.
Thank you, Ms. Quinata. I appreciate that. I see I've unmuted the mic for Desleen. Can I just please remind everybody, if you have a question, please let's try and keep our questions to today's discussion with the limited dispensation and the new rules of registration. If you have registration related questions or application questions specifically, just let us know, and then we'll try to answer them in the chat box. Desleen, your question, please.
Like my application, it's been hanging since 2016, but I have short courses, but all my courses are through Arca Global. So I have all my, what do you say now, that points. I do have all those points. And I have about, let me see, 2010. So it's about 10, more than 10 years now. Because I started with this health and safety around 2010. But now my struggle is just my exam. I don't know what's going on. And I've been waiting for feedback, and I've been applying and applying and applying. So this is the only thing that is now hanging on my side.
Okay, so I would, if I could just say, Desline, I've noted your comments in the query section. What we'll do is, as you've also been speaking with Annika, so what we'll do is see that we can respond directly to you. Are you all right with that, Ms. Konate? Anything to add?
Yes, I just wanted to add in terms of, because Desline has now mentioned the short courses. So remember, Desline and everyone else, if you, like her, who you submitted your application before the LSD, okay, the LSD won't. So if you're in progress, the LSD does not apply to you. So in other words, we won't require the new rules for registration in terms of the stuff that you've already gone through. So whether it's, so let's say, for example, it's qualification. If you submitted your application when Desline did, and you had already got your assessments, the initial ones, and now you're at your last assessment, we will not apply these current rules to you because your application was back then. But what we will apply it to is if you write your exam now, after the 1st of August, and you get between 50 and 59%, and you want to do LSD, then it will apply to you. So do you understand what I mean? So it means we're not going to take you back if you applied a long time ago in terms of your qualifications, but you can be eligible for LSD in terms of the assessment results.
Thank you, Ms. Konate. Desline, thanks so much. Okay, I'm going to go through to Colin. Mbanje, you had your
Thank you so
hand up?
much. Thank you so
Hi,
much.
Colin.
Thank you. My question is around RPL. So does that mean if one applies through RPL is gonna get a qualification which is NQF level with some credits before applying for a specific category? The reason why I'm asking this question is that on site, we use, one of the legislation that we use is construction regulations. So with construction regulations, there are legal appointments, such as a construction health and safety officer. It has to be appointed. There must be qualifications. It goes to definition of the competence around construction regulations. So my question is that, is this person going to get a qualification by if it's accepted under RPL, which is maybe NVQ level 5 with some credits and so on and so on? Is that the case?
That's a very good question, Colin. And because we are not an institution of higher learning that's accredited to confer qualifications, the answer is no.
Okay.
However, remember there's other legislation that you must read in conjunction with this. So SACPCMP has legislation around RPL to allow people that do not have qualifications but have experience in a specific industry to be recognized for that experience as if they had a qualification. Okay.
Yes.
So what does that mean? So we recognize the RPL certificate as meaning that you have been able to demonstrate that you have the same knowledge as required by someone who went and did a 4-year degree, for example. So we're starting you off on the same footing when you start the professional registration process. If you have an RPL certificate, if you have a qualification, a formal qualification. What people do on site in terms of recognizing the RPL certificate, we cannot, we can't mandate or prescribe, but
Okay.
we recognize it. We recognize it as an equivalent to our SACPCMP accredited qualifications.
Okay, no, I hear you, ma'am. But you can correct me if maybe I'm wrong. The reason why I'm asking this question, I'm representing a lot of people. We've got a group that we represent, so I'm asking on behalf of others.
Mm.
So the risk that we are having now, you're gonna accept someone through RPL to be registered, which is fine. We agree, we support that. But now, this SACPA, we are also aware of it, that it's also recognized that. But isn't it? I thought you guys you work together with Department of Labor. I thought you guys you were appointed by the Chief Inspector according to the OHS Act. I thought whatever you do, somehow you communicate with the Department of Labor, because the legislation that I'm referring to, somehow is coming from Department of Labor. So we are having a problem of people having a registration certificate, but they don't have a qualification. Therefore, we can't appoint them legally on site. So I think maybe it's not to answer now. Maybe you can reflect, you can discuss with your team, maybe you can see whatever you can do, because we're gonna have a serious problem. You're gonna be receiving emails and so on and so on. If I may ask one last more question.
Can you make
I've
it
got
fast,
lot,
Colin?
just one, just one. So if anyone has got a foreign qualification, a qualification which is outside from South Africa, like NIBOSH, the presenter said it has to go through SACPA evaluation. That one we know, we are aware of it. Then he also went further to say you guys now recognizing NIBOSH under the limited dispensation, which is the 2 years. So what is going to happen after 2 years? Is it gonna be? Are you gonna put it in your policy? Because your policy is clear. It says outside qualification it has to be secularized, but it does not say, it does not discriminate any qualifications. So what is going to happen after 2 years with the NIBOSH diploma?
So Colin, unfortunately, it does discriminate.
Okay.
It discriminates quite a bit, but let me tell you what is the discrimination. The discrimination is, remember, we said there's a credit requirement. So that is where the NIBOSH qualification falls short. So remember, NQF level 8. So even like, let me give an example of the UJ short learning program for construction health and safety. It's also NQF level 8, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But it's 60 credits. So it's not a full qualification. We don't recognize it as a full qualification. So NIBOSH is the same. It's NQF level 8, but it doesn't have the required credits for us to recognize it. So it means after the LSD, what will happen is the rules kick in full, meaning if you don't comply with the rules, then there's unfortunately nothing we can assist you with unless you try the RPL route. If you don't comply there's no other way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Colin. Thank you, Ms. Corneta. Ilanda, please, if you can put forward your question, if we can keep it brief. Oh no, Ilanda, have you disappeared? Okay. Sorry, let me just unmute you. Tomuda, my apologies. Tomuda, please. You have a hand up.
You can unmute.
Yes, you can unmute. I have enabled your mic.
But it looks like the others, their mics are,
Yeah.
you'll do it one by one. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had a look at one of the questions on the question chat from Michael John Scott Wilson, which says, why does the SACPCMP not offer correct study material and learning program for safety officers? I think this is a valid point to erase the SACPA qualifications and all that. Which I suggest you need to look at, because you are in the middle of nowhere. If you don't have recognized approved courses. That's all what I just wanted to say.
Thank you, Tomuda. I'm sorry, Ms. Corneta, I don't know if you have a comment for that.
Yes. So it's true what he's saying. So the only issue is for us is that we are prohibited to be a training provider, basically. However, we are in the process of recognizing and accrediting SACPCMP approved training providers specifically for CHSO, and specifically for a specific learning program that will assist CHSOs in that it will be accessible and hopefully affordable. And if they do it through these training providers, it will be automatically recognized by the council. So that is in the pipeline. I'm hoping that, so if we start registering people under LSD from the 1st of August, they'll be required to start their qualification requirements from the 1st of April 2026. And hopefully by January 2026, we should have our first accredited providers that can then assist our CHSOs. It is a serious problem that we are looking into, and we do recognize as council. And we've looked at various options to try and support, but we also need to make sure we comply with the SACPA requirements towards us as well. I don't know if you're aware that we are a SACPA recognized professional body. So under the NQF Act, we are required to comply with SACPA requirements, and that's where that whole full qualification requirement comes from. It's actually from SACPA. So we try to balance that so that we can support CHSOs, because we understand some of the pressures that they are under. So that is what is in the pipeline. So it's coming very soon.
Thank you, Ms. Kwenaite. All right, our next question is from Lehlonolo. I hope I've said that correctly. I've disabled your mic, enabled your mic, so please, if you could ask your question. Lehlonolo Bobo.
Thank you, Cindy. For me, I just want to confirm if you recognize BTech electrical engineering from any university of technology, and then do you also recognize a postgraduate diploma in project management? Thank you.
Off the top of my head, Cobus, you're gonna have to jump in and help me here, because I'm trying to think off the top of my head if that's the right NQF level. BTech is I think it's
NQF 7.
NQF, yes. So if it's electrical engineer, so Cobus, you help me if I'm wrong. Electrical engineering NQF level 7 will be under LSD. Because you need, okay, depending on what you want to register for. If it's for CPM or CM, you'll need honors. So it means it will be recognized under LSD if you want to come through LSD. And then you'll have to do an honors within 3 years to remain registered.
All
Yes,
right.
that's correct.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay, great. And then the postgraduate diploma is what, Cobus, is it also NQF level 7?
Yes, the postgraduates also, yeah.
All right. Thank you. Before I hand over to our next question, I just saw that Mr. Baloyi posted our RPL policy. He posted a link to that in the chat. So if any of you are looking for that, please you can find that in the chat. Captain Kaul, have I said that correctly? Please, I've enabled your mic. You can ask your question.
Yes, thank you, ma'am, for the opportunity. Look, I think a couple of colleagues who have spoken before me have actually taken words out of my mouth, but I want to rehash certain issues. On your mandate, I've seen that you are placing more emphasis on qualification and not competence. Now, in my humble opinion, qualification is more theory, it's theoretically based, as opposed to competence, which has got all the elements attached to it. Now, I've got another colleague of mine, I think it's Colin, who raised a very valid point, which the SACPCMP must take that very seriously. He raised an issue that you would have issued an RPL certificate and went as further as registering somebody as a professional. But when it comes in terms of construction regulation, unfortunately, we won't be able to legally appoint that person as a competent person in terms of construction regulation. Now, this is where the catch comes in. The SACPCMP Act itself, it's a piece of legislation. Construction regulation itself, it's also an act. Now, when we interpret the law, I've had this discussion with Cobus at ESCOM at some point. When we interpret the law, we ought to interpret purposefully. Now, they can never be through a proper subsidiarity interpretation of the law, where two pieces of legislation clashes. And this is exactly what's happening here. What the SACPCMP should have done, and this is now my critique as constructive engagement in this forum, was to try and solicit information from the relevant industries for us to register a construction manager in the electrical field. What do you think will be the competence? And I can already tell you, somebody who have got a BTech in electrical, somebody who's a qualified electrician, somebody who have got a degree in electrical, he's actually better positioned to be a construction manager in the electrical field than somebody who have a qualification of construction management. And this is where we are getting it wrong, because now we are producing graduates of illiterates. He's got theory, but he has never implemented that theory, and he cannot implement such theory on complex projects. So I don't want to labor much on this point, but I think you need to look at it from that perspective. A construction manager needs the technical expertise of the subject itself. That person is competent to be registered as a construction manager. I leave it there for now so that I can give an opportunity to other colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cull. Would you like to comment, Ms. Quineta?
Yes. So, and I see Quibus is like, let me have it. So, so I think it's a misconception. I did write in one of the responses, I think the response to Colin, I did write to say, remember, the only reason that we're focusing on qualification in this particular webinar is because it has to do with the LSD. But remember, the requirements are more complex than that. There's 75 pages worth of requirements and criteria and whatever. We've got a competency framework that has an average of 11 or 12 competency requirements per registration category. There are 2 competency assessments. So the requirements are, you need a specific qualification. That's the entry requirements, specific qualification and a specific years of experience. And it has to be relevant experience, meaning you have to demonstrate that you are able to do the work at a specific level of skill that is described in the scope of services. Then we assess you the first level, which is the desktop report assessment. Then you have to demonstrate the competency through a competency-based assessment, which is either an examination or an interview, where we then again now look at the competency framework and we look at your ability to demonstrate competence against the scope of services. So it's my belief that through that, so in other words, the entry requirements and the way in which we conduct our assessments, we can independently say that that individual is competent. So that is what we base that registration on.
Thank you, Ms. Quineta. Do you want to add something to that, Mr. van Wijngaard?
Yes, no, I just want, Ms. Quineta has hit the nail on the head there, and I just want to re-emphasize that when it comes to the questions in terms of what the construction regulations versus the PCMP Act, the construction regulations in certain parts requires a competent person versus, for example, a safety officer. You have to be registered with the council, so that council registration deems you to be adequately skilled to perform that specific task, especially for the safety officers and the managers and the agents. So on the side of health and safety. When it comes to the actual assessment process, I can indicate to you that there isn't a specific industry directed assessment process. So the assessments cuts across all the different industries. So it's not industry specific just in terms of civil construction, and that whether a person works in the power sector as well, they will be adequately assessed according to that specific competencies in that industry. So yeah, just wanted to add that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Van Wijngaard. Our next
Sorry,
question
ma'am.
is
Sorry.
Yes.
It's an emergency. I want to comment from what you just said.
Sorry,
Oh,
who's,
we have to give others an
sorry,
opportunity.
Mr.
Sorry,
Mbanjwe,
Colin.
sorry, yes, I would love to let you, but
But it's
please-
misleading. I just wanted to
There are
correct him
20
on something.
people who want
It's
to
fine.
ask questions.
Sorry,
And
Mr.
you got a long question, and now you're getting another opportunity. Sorry, Colin, we don't mean to close you off. Maybe put it in the chat and we can engage further on the chat.
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Christian van der Walt, your mic is enabled, please. And if I can just ask, please keep your questions as short as possible. We do have a lot of people wanting to ask questions, so let's try and get to everybody. Mr. van der Walt, if you can go ahead. Mr. van der Walt, you'll have to unmute your mic. And in 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's move on to our next question then from Mandi Nohlaka. Nohlaka, I hope I've said that right. Mandi, if you could please pose your question.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity. I just want to be as quick as possible. Remember, SACPCMP was taking long, in fact, to access our document. But my question was, last year I've applied applied for the agent, okay, and I was not approved as an agent. So I asked for an evidence so that I can see where I have failed, but I didn't get that that report to me. But I applied as a candidate, and then they did approve my candidate. And now I'm doing my advanced diploma in safety management. My quick question will be, what are the steps for me to upgrade in this period of 2 years, as I'll be finishing my advanced diploma in June next year? Thank you.
I'm not sure. Yes.
I don't know if I've got missing information. Maybe you can handle it, Gubis.
So what we'll have to do is to actually see your profile. So it's difficult offhand to indicate what you need to do in order for you to upgrade. But you need to just make sure that in terms of the scope of services, that you can demonstrate those competencies. If you have completed your tertiary qualification during these 2 years, of course, it will depend in terms of whether you meet the requirements of the new rules for registration, whether you will have to follow either the limited special dispensation route or if you can just proceed as normal. But yeah, just in terms of, it's difficult to offhand indicate what you need to do without actually looking at your specific details.
Thank you. If we can move on to Mr. van der Walt, I have enabled and re-abled and disabled and re-abled you. Please try your mic again. You need to unmute from your side. Otherwise, if you write your query in the box, then I can read it out on your behalf. Oh, it's still not unmuting. Okay, there might be an issue with the mic. So please, if you could just write your query in the chat, and then I'll read it out. I'll read it out for you. So if we could please, Tabiso, if you can go ahead with your question.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just have a question. I actually have a BTech in electrical engineering and also a BTech in project management. So coupled with that, I have a PMP. I think a lot of people are aware of that international qualification. And I've seen on some of the headlines that SACPMP has partnered with PMI. as well to recognize some of the qualifications. I know that the PMI CP was one of them. So, but the PMP, it's almost like at the pinnacle. It's actually the main qualification for project managers internationally. So, if my question is basically, will I still need to go through and attain an NQF level 8 if I've got all those qualifications, my 2B techs and my PMP? And also, I've got about 17 years experience on the construction and project management. Will I still need to, after registration, still get need to still get my NQF level 8 as well, or will my PMP suffice together with my qualifications?
It's so no. I was really trying to find a way to reassure you to say that you've done a lot of work, but unfortunately, in terms of the current rules and what we allow to recognize as indicated in the rules, we can't sort of package it in that way. However, as I indicated, the way that we try and accommodate people is then through RPL to do that packaging. Because what RPL will then do is through the evaluation process, it then confirms that yes, this person is NQF level 8 construction project management. So that's the only way we can do it. We can't sort of repackage it on our own during the registration process. So I would, if you don't want to do NQF level 8, so in other words, you don't want to LSD and then NQF level 8, then your best option will be RPL, which means you would never be required after attaining RPL to then do anything further with regards to your qualifications.
Thank you so much. I think we are loud and clear. Thanks.
Right. Thank you. Oops, let me just, sorry. Our next question from Mr. Dirk Human. Mr. Human, if you can put forward your question, please.
Thank you, team. Just a quick one. I've registered in 2017, 20 March 2017. I've also got a BTech degree in risk management. I've done a diploma outside the country in Zambia, one of the universities here. I started with UNISA, but I couldn't finish due to working abroad out of the country. I also got Neobosch International and some other qualifications, COMSOC 1, COMSOC 2, SACPCMP, and all of these ones. So because of me working out of the country, I did work on construction, and I even did for master builders 40 audits, these ISO audits. So I've done a lot of construction, a lot of projects, Sunroll, many of them, construction, pick and place, blah, blah, all of these. So I haven't submitted any documentation. I see there's templates that we need to fill in and all of that. I haven't done all of that. Now I've seen my account has been credited in 2024. So they haven't accepted my payments and stuff. So what do I need to do now? Because currently I'm out of the country. I still want to keep my manager status. I've applied for manager status that time. So how do I go ahead to continue with this or to keep it?
First off, well done on keeping your registration, even though you are outside of the country. We are working with international organizations, so we can look at reciprocal registration. For the rest of your question, I'm not sure, Ms. Konate, Mr. Van Veengracht.
So my first thought is you can do it anywhere in the world. So that's the joy of our online system now. So you can update anything you want from anywhere in the world. The interesting part would be if there's any certified documentation that's required. I don't know how we would, but I suppose certification is the same across the world. But because our system is what it is, you can continue with your profile, your application wherever you are in the world. I don't know if you want to add something to this.
Yeah, that where, and also it doesn't limit you where you actually work or where you obtain that experience, as long as you can indicate or prove the competency that is required under the specific category. It doesn't matter whether you are performing those functions here in South Africa or abroad. The qualifications that has been obtained abroad, of course, those just need to be SACPA evaluated to get that evaluation document together with that as well. So yeah.
All right. Our next question for Mzwane Ndikane. I'm going to enable your mic. I have enabled your mic. You can ask your question.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, greetings all. I've got 2 comments and 2 slides from Goba's presentation. The slide which was presenting about core requirements that didn't show the construction health and safety manager. Please review that slide. And then there's a slide which is talking about application and assessment process. I'm concerned about, I think it's step number 2, the verification of documents, whereby your presentation, Koba, stated 21 days. After 21 days, you said the application gets cancelled. Guys, can we please try to improve the system so that it can be user-friendly and fair to your applicants? Because this is not fair at all. There's one lady who was commenting here who stated about, I mean, she applied and her application took about 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. And now we're talking about 21 days here, and then you cancel and restart the application. So guys, we talk of money here. If ever that cancellation of application also covers the refunding of applicant, that will be fair enough. If ever there's no refund towards the applicants, that is totally not fair. It's really killing applicants. And then the last one, you mentioned that these exemptions are going to take, it's only valid for 2 years. And if we say we allow people now to consider, I mean, to improve their level of qualifications, competencies, and close the gap as well on those exemptions that you stated 3. So if we talk of 2 years, then if it means after 2 years, those exemptions lapse, and then those people, it means they'll be out of the system. To me, that is not fair enough. We're talking about, I mean, since the existence of the council, there are people who are there within the council who have been benefiting. Now, we are trying, I mean, the council is trying to be fair, to try to close the gap to those people who didn't benefit or who have the, I mean, same experience before the existence of the council with who have been operating. Now, if we're going to say we're going to give them 2 years, and then after that, I mean, there's nothing, I mean, if they fail, I mean, there's no formal qualification that you can do within 2 years. If ever we're talking about, let's say, if for argument's sake, a diploma, it may be, 3 years. So then if we can, the issue of 2 years to me versus, to improving of your level of competency and improving your level of qualifications, to me, that is not fair enough. If we can revise that, that can be fair enough. Thank you.
So can I tackle number 2? Question number 2, then you can tackle number 1 first.
Noted.
So in terms of so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So remember, we indicated the special dispensation itself is 2 years, but addressing the requirements after you register under special dispensation is 3 years. So in other words, the CPD cycle, the dispensation in itself. So in other words, the entering in is 2 years. But once you're in and having to comply, each individual gets 3 years. So in other words, there's no cutoff period. There's no grand cutoff period of 3 years for everyone. It means you, when you register, you get your CPD cycle date. When it kicks off, you have 3 years to comply. So each individual, there will be staggered sort of end dates for your requirements because it will be linked to your CPD cycle, which is 3 years.
Thank you, Ms. Konaite. Ms. Van Vangaard, if you can give your response brief. Sorry, I would
Yes.
just also like to just state to everyone, sorry, before just jumping in here, please, with your questions, if your questions are not, they must be like the one we just had now regarding the special dispensation. If you have general registration queries, please put them in the chat box and we'll respond to you with those. We're running out of time, so unfortunately, if it's a general registration query, I'm not going to allow it. It must be related to the limited special dispensation. Mr. Van Veergaard, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And just briefly, so the CHSM NQF qualification requirement that wasn't on the slide is because the slides are just an overview. All the details are in the rules for registration. So very specifically, but the CHSM qualification requirement is in NQF level 6, 240 credits. With regards to your comments in terms of the 21 days, the reason why applications takes a longer period of time is because the council has to go back and back and back more than once to existing profiles to get documentation out of or from applicants that has not submitted the correct information. So if we don't need to do that continuously for longer extended periods, the entire registration process will improve in terms of time. So that will make the benefit. So the benefit is on that side. So just a comment in terms of that. Thank you, Natasha.
Thanks so much, Mr. Van Veergaard. All right.
And
Mr. Van
just
Vo-
on that,
Yes?
sorry, Natasha, because I just
No
want to
problem.
be very clear so that no one leaves believing that we are trying to make things harder for people. So the 21 days it's specifically also for people who do not respond to requests for outstanding documents. So you once you've responded and you are providing the necessary information, we are not going to just, close your application within 21 days. It's based on people who do not respond. I have had instances where I've had conversations with people, especially those that have talked about this 10 years or 5 years or whatever that's taken them to register. In some instances, I've heard of people who use what they call consultants. We do not use agents or consultants as the council. People have lost a lot of money using third parties, thinking that this person is actually working on their profile or working on their application on their behalf with council, and they're not. What they're doing is they're taking your money, and they are not doing anything with regards to your registration. And then when you realize it and you come back, then it's been a lot of time has passed. So we also want to avoid that. Each individual must take responsibility for their application. There's no third party that can do the application process for you. So we just must make sure that we are aware of these dates now in terms of, or the timelines now in terms of the application process. But that's now outside of LSD, but I just want to make sure that we all leave with the same understanding.
Thank you so much for that. All right, so our next question will be from Marius Lotto. Marius, please keep it brief and make sure that it's with regards to the LSD. Otherwise, I'm going to have to stop your question.
It will be specific.
Thank you.
Moving up from one category to the next. Let's say you're a safety officer now, registered as a safety officer, and you want to move up to the manager's side. Will that be seen as a new application, or will the LSD rules apply when you apply for that?
Good question.
So if I can answer that, so yeah, that will be a new application and a new designation, so that will be able to form part of the new LSD.
And I think there was a question in the Q&A that also asked that. But the question, I just want to add the question in the Q&A as well. I'm sorry, I'm looking for it. I can't find it now, and apologies to that person. So I'm going to paraphrase if I can remember correctly. They were asking if they're already registered as the CHSO, they want to register the CHSA, but they don't have a formal qualification. So in other words, they're asking two questions. Can they RPL? And also, can they gain the experience as a CHSA and RPL? So that's an interesting question because remember, you do the work registered as a candidate under the supervision of a professional, right? But to register as a candidate, you need a qualification. So obviously, if you don't have one, then you're not able to. So this is a very tricky one. So I would propose, I can't remember who the person was. I'll look for your question. I'd propose that we address it with you one-on-one. There are options to accommodate you, but I think we'll have to look at your specific situation. But just to note that we do encourage registration as a candidate because you then can keep a proper logbook, make sure you're developing those competencies under supervision. There is other supervision provisions in the Act that can accommodate people who then won't be able to register as candidates. But I think we'll address it with you one-on-one. I can't remember who it was, and apologies for that. But we'll then chat with you offline to assist you.
And can I just add one last thing as well? I noted a couple of questions in terms of this in the chat as well. You don't need to apply for LSD separately. So what will happen is when you start your application, etc., when we go through it and we assess it, we will inform you in terms of your outcome letter whether you qualify for it, and then we'll give you the option to accept it, etc. So just to note that you don't need to go somewhere specific to go and apply for LSD. So the council will inform you whether you fall within those requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Venhout. Sorry, I think that might have been my wording that I put there. So thank you for clarifying that. All right, so we are running out of time rapidly. So let's see if we can take the next 2 to 3 questions, and then we might have to close off. L'Oreal, please, if you could, I've enabled your mic, if you could keep your questions brief. And then everybody else, please put your questions in the Q&A session so we can also get back to them at a later stage. Thank you.
Hi, team. Hope you're well. A quick question. With regards to the RPL. Once you apply, everything goes well. You get the RPL certificate. Remember, we pay for the application. And then do you need to apply for CHSA again and pay for another application fee? And then question number 2, a quick one, is that you're saying that we need 4 years qualification or experience for CHSO. At this point in time in construction, nobody is allowing guys to come and do 4 years because our safety agents don't want candidate safety officers, they want less officers. So there is a hiccup.
Okay, so L'Oreal, please put that second question in the comment section and we can assist, I think, with the first question. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
Can we, Ms. Kwanete?
Yes. So I want to put it in this way. And I really am doing it respectfully. So the RPL process is a means of recognizing someone's knowledge base as would be required if they had a qualification. And we must remember, individuals that have done a full qualification have also had the burden of resources that they had to put towards getting that qualification. And RPL is not even a fraction of what it would cost to do a full qualification, even some short courses. And what we're doing with RPL is we're allowing individuals to then get recognition for what is required of a qualification to then have access to registration, rather than saying, go back to university, quit your job, go back to university, take 4 or 5 years off and get a full qualification at an immense cost. So yes, RPL is a process that gives you access to professional registration. So what ends up happening is you and the person that wins to and got a form of qualification, you start on the same basis at the professional registration stage.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you very
Coordinator.
much.
Thanks so much for that question. All right, so 2 more questions I'm going to allow to Mr. Pretorius and then Lesabisa Shongwe. So please, if you can get your questions ready, Mr. Pretorius. Remember LSD related, please.
Afternoon. My question is that I actually want to know that the requirements for I'm talking about health and safety manager and safety officer, because we have safety officers that works for our company. We just registered with SAMTRAC. Now, I see you guys require SAMTRAC or recognize SAMTRAC as but they also got like BSc environment. And they want to know if they can register with 2 years experience also as a safety manager. That's the one. And then another one, will the qualifications of the environmental be accepted, which is a level 8. And then
No, okay, if we can just take those 2 questions for now, please. Sorry, we were really running out of time. Sorry, Mr. Pretorius.
So just in terms of the years of experience and the competency, so please ensure that for them to register as a health and safety manager, they need to have that relevant number of years of experience as stipulated. So if they've only got 2 years of experience as a health and safety manager, they will not be able to register as a professional, or not a profession, but as a health and safety manager. At that stage, they need to get the full number of years of experience. In the meantime, they can possibly register as a candidate should the qualification requirements suffice. When it comes to the environmental qualification, as long as it's just want to confirm, but in terms of the qualifications that the council do recognize is on our Annexure A, the list of qualifications. If it's part of that list of qualifications, then it will be accepted. If not, then it needs to most probably follow the RPL route. Thank you.
All right. Sorry, Mr. Pretorius, I cut you off there with the last question. Sorry, and I know that it was my apologies for that. Do you want to just repeat the end of that question?
Sure, yeah.
Sorry about that.
No problem. To register as a health and safety manager, my question is actually the following. There is no South African recognized safety officers course. Are you guys also negotiating with companies in South Africa to register like the UK and the USA qualifications where they register as safety officers, professional safety officers, supervisors, managers, and so forth?
Yes. So in terms of, are you referring to, I'm just struggling to get the question. Just repeat that. Do we recognize other countries' registered safety officers?
No, that's not the question. My question is, currently there is National Diploma in Safety Management, there is SAMTRAC, there is NIBUSH, there is environmental health, and so forth, which there is no recognized South African qualification as a safety officer, which candidates can go and study. Are you currently working on something similar to the UK as well as the USA?
All right. So what we are doing is we are in communication with a whole bunch of institutions that are developing and has developed courses for health and safety officer level, as well as further qualifications as well. So there will definitely be quite a number of qualifications that will be coming available quite shortly in terms of some of the institutions that we have been talking to. So definitely we are working closely with the various institutions in terms of that.
Thank you very much.
And just to add, so if you have anyone in the pipeline or anyone who's starting their career, just to add that we do have a accredited qualification in health and safety. I just want to get the proper level. Sorry, Tash. I'm just going to the
While
rules
you're looking for that,
okay, so
Sabisa Shongwe can get ready.
We've got a Bachelor of Construction in Health and Safety, NQF Level 7, and an Advanced Diploma in Construction Health and Safety that are accredited by the Council. Those we are using towards CHSA at the moment. So if there's a pipeline of individuals that want to know, if I want to become a CHSA, maybe they're young and they want to start studying, encourage them to study SACPCMP accredited qualifications if they want to register. Obviously, those that are already been in the industry and whatever, we're going to try and now accommodate through the LSD and so forth. But just remember, there is already a accredited qualifications. Now we are working on the other NQF levels to develop qualifications.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, so our last question. I'm so sorry, I have to cut everything off after this question, but please put your questions in the chat box so that we can go through them and answer them, and then we'll look to either publish them or send them to you or put them on our when we post our video. Let's Sabisa Shongwe, please go ahead with your question. I have enabled the mic.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. I will be swift. I have a question, I have an item for advice, and then I have a compliment. Okay, my first question is that I have NQF 9 and 15 years experience as an architect. Does that mean I apply straight for the interview and then the exam? Is that the path?
So you will start your application process by submitting all your various qualifications and experience, etc. Whereafter it will follow the assessment stage, where it will go to the assessors. If the assessors pass you through that, then only will you be able to register for a professional interview. If you are registering for a project manager or a professional construction manager. But yeah, that is the process that you will follow. So you can't immediately apply for an interview or an exam. It needs to follow the verification processes first, and the eligibility and the assessment process.
Okay, and then the advice part, I would advise that maybe you create a simplified matrix on your website, because it's a lot of information. Just like how you have this beautiful table that says you apply and then you're a candidate, and then this what happens with arrows. So if I'm an architect, we're all visual, and those things, they help to make things easier. So that'll help you. And then the last one, I speak as a vice president of SACP, and I just want to say thank you and well done with having created this SACPCMP, and we look forward to also registering with yourself. Absolutely, thank you. Yes, thanks, ma'am.
So much, ma'am. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Vice President.
Yes, thank you to everyone. It's been so wonderful to host you. Registrar, I don't know if you want to have a few words just before we close. Or
not really. I want to thank everyone for participating. I also want to thank the Vice President of SACP for very encouraging and motivating words. And I thank everyone, even the team members, particularly for answering to the questions so efficaciously. It shows we need to have a session like this soon, soon. But maybe we must have another one in a month's time or so. And there's a need definitely for some of the clarity issues that are being sought through this session. I thank you very much, Madam Van der Berg, as well, for facilitating.
Thank you so much, Registrar. I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to be here. Your time and your attention is valuable. We note that, and we thank you for giving it to us. We are going to look at putting all the information out and then possibly doing another webinar Please remember, just put your questions. I'll keep the webinar open for just a few more minutes so you can note your questions. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a safe evening and drive home safely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you for
bye.
participating. Thanks for being present.
Thank you, bye.
It's appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.